Hi guys and girls, and welcome back to Geekism. My name is Jonty and we're here in Planet Coaster and we're continuing our Let's Build series. It's a bit of a mix and match episode today. We're doing a few little bits across the western area, but we're going to start off by doing the entrance for the mine train that we built in the last episode. We're also going to reveal what we ended up calling it. Left it open to you guys in the comments. Had some great suggestions, but one of them seemed to fly past all the others with lots of likes, and you'll see what that is in just a moment. One thing I've tried to do here is use a few different materials that I've not really used in the western area before. So we've gone for some brick underneath the wood, to give it a bit of a change in a bit of variation. And also the theme here is meant to be a little bit like a train station, although it's not meant to be a public train station. I felt that brick would be a bit more secure and stable than wood would be. I've had the idea for ages in my head now that I wanted the mine train entrance to have the train scenery piece in it, sort of gushing over the edge as if it's about to fall on top of you as you go into the ride. And I've had it in my head for ages and I've been really looking forward to doing it. So again, we finally get to do it in this episode, so I was really looking forward to doing it. We used some of the rail piece there as well to sort of make it look like it's coming off the rails, and then we slowly just sort of fill in all the areas here with different bits of scenery, mine carts and luggage and just all sorts of things, and make them all look as if they're sort of tearing out and pouring out as you enter the ride. We add this bit of smoke here. I end up taking that away afterwards because the sign actually goes above the train. So yeah, we don't actually end up using that in the end, but then we also add some steam around the place as well, make it look as if the engine's piping hot. And some there as well. And then we had a few other bits here, like I say, just sort of general bits of scenery as if it's come crashing into the station. And then a few cases and things on the other side as well. So we're nearly at the end of the western area. I think it's going to be one more video just to sort of do a last few finishing touches, a final flat ride, and a few other pieces of scenery for the sort of western main street. We've ended up with quite a few sort of shops and buildings in this area. We have the main street as you come in that has the saloon and the other sort of old west buildings, and then obviously we've got the promenade that we started last episode that we finish today as well. That's sort of more of a sort of I don't really know what sort of style you would call it, but sort of like a Louisiana type old promenade, but still more modern than the old sort of old Wild West. So this area here is very much the gold rush, the oil rush type area, and then as you go around the corner it sort of modernises itself, which is something you find in a lot of parks. They have sort of different areas, and it's just a turn around the corner to get somewhere that's a bit more different. Here, this is actually my wife's idea, was to have the train track coming right down. Originally, as you exit the ride, you just saw the back of the train, and I couldn't figure out what to do with it. It's actually Nicola's idea to have this coming down here and sort of as if it was coming out of the building. So we add some of the artistic pieces here, what they call the primitive pieces there, to make sort of a tunnel, and then we have some of the train pieces there, like they're sort of toppling over, and also this gives us a nice bit of scenery for the exit of the Rapids ride there as well, which is something, there was an open space there that originally was going to have the mine train actually run past it, but I couldn't get the track around in a nice enough manner, so it's been open for a while now, but we end up having this here as if they've spilt barrels of moonshine or something like that, I guess, using some of the water special effects. I'm just trying to find the name of the person who's named the ride. I'm struggling. I should have wrote it down before I started this, shouldn't I? But I'm going back through the comments, and here it is somewhere here, I think. There we go, I found it. Okay, so we're going to be doing that in a moment, but first of all we finish off the last little bits of theming for the queue, and also this covers the queue for the Whirly Gig as well, the Chair-a-Plane ride that we renamed Whirly Gig. Somebody did point out that Whirly Rig is the name of the pirate, the mini pirate Ferris wheel, I guess, is the Whirly Rig. So when we place that down, we'll have to end up renaming that. So I apologise if the fact that I'm calling it the Whirly Gig is confusing, but we didn't like the name Chair-a-Plane. We wanted something that fit the theme and still sort of sounded like a travelling fair type name. And then we start adding a bit of foliage as well. I stick to the sort of alpine-y theme here. This would be you know, the bit of the park that's up in the mountains, if it's where they're looking for the gold and things like that. So we've kept it to sort of pine trees and other alpine trees, and then as you go towards the back of the ride, it goes into more of the desert with the cacti and things like that. And then we reused the fence that we originally put down on the Chairplane ride to just sort of cap this area off here. And that's pretty much this area done. We do come back briefly later on to do something else, but for the most part we're now going to be moving over to the other side of the western area where we've been doing the promenade. Again, we just place a few things here, make it look as if they've sort of fell off the train as it's gone past. And then as I was placing those down, I realised that there was quite a big gap behind it, and if you were looking through, it looked very bare, so we just sort of fill it in with some of the foliage here. And again, we carry on using these sort of creosote bushes because we're not going to be able to use those for much longer, because I don't really think they'll fit in many other themes apart from maybe a spooky theme. So we're just a lot of the things I put down in this episode and the next episode as well are just sort of like the last few bits of western scenery that we probably aren't going to be able to use anywhere else in the park. So you'll see me, well, you won't be able to tell, but I get quite excited when I find a bit that I've not used before and place it down and realise we can use that to sort of just fill out the last few bits of scenery in this area before we move on to our pirate area next week. I just watched the ride there for some reason, I don't know why, but here we go. We're building the sign for the ride now, and the naming of the ride goes to Chris Doffer, who suggested we call it the Black Gold Railroad, which I think is a great name. Obviously black gold being a kind of nickname for oil in those sort of times, you know, because it was worth so much money and it came out of the ground, I guess. I'm not really up on my American Old West history, but I assume that's where it came from. So the Black Gold Railroad, obviously, because we have a lot of theming to do with oil. I realised I'd put the sign upside down there, so we fixed that, don't worry. So well done to Chris Doffer. Thank you very much for the great suggestion for the name. So we finish off the sign here, Black Gold Railroad, and then we just had a couple of little ones underneath here to say that it is actually a runaway mine train. It's one thing I'm still doing with the park. I did it with the River Rapids. I want this to still look like a theme park. So even though we're trying to do a relatively realistic building, you know, we still have signs that say mine train, we still have signs that say rapids, we still have signs for toilets and things like that, because although I want to try and make it relatively realistic, I want it to be a realistic theme park, not just a realistic western town, you know. I'm a big fan of the juxtaposition between the realistic scenery and then the big garish signs for come here for a popcorn or whatever. So yeah. We fill in a few areas here, move the sign down a little, it ends up being a little high, and we just add a few lights above it. I love these lanterns. I think they're actually part of the pirate theme, but I actually find that they're really varied. I think they kind of work everywhere. There's a really good job Frontier have of making a lot of scenery items that are relatively generic, even though they're still very stylised, and I think it works really well. So we've moved over here now to the Aeronaut ride, and we're going to cap off the western area. This is the furthest we're going to go in the western area, so I really wanted something that would wrap around the Aeronaut ride, tie it in to the promenade look, but also cap off the area so we can you know, leave the back of it for maybe a few trees. And also maybe there's quite a big area still to the side of the park behind this, so we may find that a coaster in one of the other areas could work its way down here. So if we built a really big giga coaster or something, it could come down the side of here and back up again, and that might make a nice sort of silhouette to the park. So we using multiple building pieces, we add in this piece here. Again, I don't really know what sort of building this is meant to be. It's purely fits around the ride basically. So, but it's very similar theme to the entrance archway. And again, the theme here is sort of like a relatively well-to-do area in the western area. This is where the people with money would come and ride the steamboat and shop and things like that. So we add it around here. Now I come to a bit of a junction here where the queue meets. Obviously it doesn't make a perfect circle, so it takes me a minute to figure out what I'm going to do. And I'm going to cap it off with a couple of towers, and I realised that I could probably just reuse these towers here to save me having to redesign the roof. So with just a bit of movement and placing the windows all on the correct side, we can actually use that to sort of cap off the area. So we place one there, and then with a bit of editing we can place one on the other side as well. And that's what it gives me the idea to basically create a big one of those in that gap there where the queue joins. But we're actually going to come back to that in a moment, because there's something else we go and do first. We finish off here just by moving some of the windows around and capping off the area, and then dropping that down into the water, and then I realised that that would be quite nice if we added the dock that's already there and sort of carry it around. So that's one thing we go and do in a moment as well. So yeah, here we go. Just put the basis down for this. It took me quite a while to line this up because we have to line it up in between the two buildings so it looks right, but also it's getting very close to the ride there as well. So oftentimes it became unplaceable due to the closeness to the hot air balloons. So it takes me a little minute to figure out where it can go. That piece there, for instance, is not quite far enough out, so we just move the whole thing. Apologise that everything's a little bit close up here, but there's a lot of fine-tuning with these wooden planks and the base as well. So we spend a little bit of time zoomed in here just to get it just right. So apologise, it's very difficult to see what's going on when you both zoomed in and sped up. But you'll see here that we sort of cap it all off with the white wall, and then we use this non-grid wall floor piece. It's very useful. It's one of the only floor pieces that aren't on the grid, but it means you can place it in there where you've got a few buildings meeting and it doesn't really affect itself. We then sort of cap this off just so it's the ceiling of that area. We also need to go back in there and place a few barrels and crates down as well, just as a bit of added scenery. And then we bring it up. And I have the idea of making this a bell tower. I'm not really sure why it's a bell tower, but it's one thing we haven't really done yet, is a bell, and there's some really great bells in the game, so I end up just using this as a bell tower, and I guess it would be the bell that rings when the boat comes in or something like that, I suppose. That's kind of what I'm doing in my head to give it a meaning, I guess. So we use that roof again. It's very useful that you can duplicate parts in this game, because obviously once you've made something relatively detailed, such as that roof, you can reuse it, and it means you take up a little less time doing those sort of things, but also it sort of carries on a theme through the area as well. Something you would find in real parks, definitely. And finally finish off this area with a few windows around the front, but I think actually we come back and do those in a moment. For some reason I had a change of heart here and moved away. And you'll notice there's an area that's been there since right at the very beginning when we first did the rapids. I'm just checking which shops here because I want to add a shop into this wall. The main reason doing this is because there's a small circle area at the end of this path, and all of the guests only ever go one way around the circle to get onto the rapids or the mine train. This other area, the path there you can see in front, is always very empty, so I thought one of the easiest ways of getting people to head over here was to place a store, and it moves some of the traffic around, not all of it. It doesn't go 50-50, but it definitely moves some of the traffic around, and it makes the area look a little bit more alive and a little bit more realistic, and so people aren't just sort of beelining just for the mine train or the rapids. There was weird problems with the terrain tool here to get it to wrap around the shop, so we end up capping it off with some rocks, and then that sort of gives me the idea to turn it into a bit of a mine shaft. So I have a little bit of trouble here getting the rocks both covering the shop on the outside and not jumping into the shop on the inside. If you actually go into this park, by the way, I am looking at putting this park on the Steam Workshop once it's finished, so if you actually go in there and look up, you'll actually see that the ceiling is pretty much got rocks coming through it, but I thought it's fine as it is because it's very rarely the sort of view that you're going to have a look at. So we cap it off with some of these logs, and finish off just covering the little areas with some of the smaller rocks of the deciduous group. I think they're deciduous rocks. And then the last thing we do is add a sign there. We go to do that one, but I realise it's huge, massive, so we end up going to one of the smaller ones. And originally I was going to call it the Shake Shaft until I realised that sounded a little bit phallic, so instead we just call it the Mine Shaft Shakes. And I use a technique here that I've figured out that if you add spaces before a word, it moves it across to the other side of the sign, and then we can add a little bit of scenery there. Actually go back and add some more scenery there off camera, a shovel and a skull and just a few other bits. Okay, so then we move back over to the Promenade, and this is where we finish up our video. We finish off the Promenade buildings along the side there, moving from this ride right down to the archway. Pretty much finish the Promenade, to be honest with you. That's now a finished area, so the only last thing we have to do in the western area is the Old West area. We've got one more ride to add, which is I can't remember what they call it in this game. It's a tilt-a-whirl, or what we'd call in the UK waltzers, but they have a weird name for it in this game. I'm assuming there's some sort of copyright there. I can't remember what they call it, but anyway, the one that's a tilt-a-whirl, or the one that's the waltzers, we're going to add that, and that's pretty much all the sort of westerny themed rides, and we've managed to get them in. I've noticed with the flat rides they're all relatively themed, but they've made it so that there are about 3 or 4 rides that sort of fit an obvious area. So for this first park, while we're sticking to the main themes, I'm trying to use them all up. So here we've got the Chairplane, the Aeronauts, and the Tilt-A-Whirl, or whatever they call it, because they're the sort of westerny ones. And then as we move into the pirate area, you've got the Rocktopus and the pirate ship, obviously. The sci-fi just has some of the sort of spinny, roundy ones, but they're sort of themed sci-fi-ish. And the fantasy has a few with the witch, spinny round witch one or whatever. I don't know. I haven't figured out the names of them all yet. Finish off this area then, so we join up the dock with that building. I think it ends up looking quite smart actually, and sort of caps the area off quite nicely, ties it all together. I'm pretty happy with how that's all turned out. The last thing we do is add some wood here, because it just looks a little bit plain, having that large white expanse at the front there. And we just sort of cap it off with these wooden planks, the most useful piece in the game. And then we cap it off with, I don't know what you even call those little things, but again, they're very useful too. And there we go, so having a quick look and trying to figure out some space, and planning what sort of buildings to place here, thinking I'm going to be doing sort of 2 or 3 or 4 buildings, I think. Not too sure what I was doing there, all over the place. So we had a couple of buildings here, so a couple of them useful, a couple of them just for show. Again, it's very... Oh, I jumped out to talk to somebody there, I think. It's very sort of standard for theme parks that some of the buildings are just sort of shop fronts, face fascias is the word, I think. They don't really do anything, they're just there to fill up space and to look good. But then some of them will be actual stores, and that's kind of what we've done here. So we start off, all the colours are very sort of pastel and light and bright. Very sort of washed out paint on wood is the sort of theme I'm going for here. Again, sort of battered by the elements of being near the sea or the river, or whatever. I mean, obviously we're just going onto a pond here or a lake, but in real life this would most likely be near the coast. And the idea with doing this area was the Old West area was getting a little brown, a little dark, and I wanted to be able to use some of the other Western pieces that are a little lighter, and also just bring a bit of colour to the area. So with the flower boxes and canopies and things like that. I'm trying to add the canopies on here. They're all a little big for the windows, to be honest, so we end up just placing one over the door, and we call this an apothecary. It's one of those words that I've heard that I think has something to do that would be around that time. It's sort of where they make early medicines and things, I believe, is an apothecary. So it kind of fit the sort of time that I'm going for here, I think. But again, none of this is historically accurate in any way, shape or form. If you're writing a history project, do not use anything that I've talked about in these videos. The next building is going to be I was going to say Starbucks, Street Fox. It's obviously meant to be Starbucks. Street Fox coffee building. And here we go for a sort of white building with red features, because that's very similar to the logo. And also it's just, I felt like a nice colour palette to use. So we add the Star Fox coffee here. And one thing we do with this building that we didn't do with the other food buildings is sort of really brand it using the Star Fox, the Street Fox branding, canopies and signs. So whereas all the others we've kind of made them look old westy but sort of obvious as what they are, so the stores are built inside a general store, things like that. Here we've actually quite heavily branded it, so I'm not too sure whether to maybe tone down the branding on this one or up the branding on the others, but either way I think we need to try and come up with a running sort of design thread that will stick to throughout the park. Using some of the wooden pieces here to cap it all off. Like I said before on the live streams and some of the other videos as well, it really is all about layering here. So if you just have a wall piece with a window on, it looks quite plain and dull. But if you have a wall piece with a window and a window box and panel and wooden strips and signs, that's what really sort of pushes a building into the from the good area to the exceptional area. Not saying that my stuff's exceptional at all. The last building we do, the second to last one here, sorry, is a toilet. Something we haven't placed for a while. Regarding the shops that I'm putting down, all I'm doing is before I figure out where I want to put something, start building the building, and when it actually comes to placing the actual shop or facility down, all I do is go into park management, click guests, and it gives you an overall idea there of what people are looking for. It'll tell you with little bars as to whether or not they need drinks or food or whatever. So all these sort of buildings, they're that's the reason the things get put down in them. I built the coffee one and the milkshake one because they were thirsty, and this one placed down because they needed the loo. So the building style with this one is a bit weird, if I'm honest with you. I didn't really know what I was doing. I wanted a different sort of roof from each building so that the skyline looks very different. So the roof I built here is very sort of very sloped, and we actually go back and place some little masonette windows in it, but honestly it's not very westerny. It kind of looks a little out of place, if I'm honest, but so I may go back and tweak it. But for now, it sort of fills a gap. And the last building we put here is another one that's just a fascia. It's not a real building, but it's a sheriff's building. It's one thing we haven't done. Again, a couple of pieces I haven't been able to use yet. One of them is some barred windows that look great. Those ones there, so I wanted to use those, and also this great sign with a big sort of sheriff's badge on it. So we placed that one there. So it's the sheriff. That's where the naughty people go. And this is a little bit Old West. But I wanted to kind of tie the two together a little bit, so that's why I bought this one over in with a slightly darker wood, just to sort of tie the area together. And also the sheriff building is a sort of building that will have been there from the very beginning and will never have changed, so that's kind of the theme I've gone for there. Last thing we do is place some signs down, use these fantastic wanted posters. Again, that's a sort of theme we've had throughout the western area, that there's somebody on the loose, and the local law enforcers are looking for them. We capped this off with a flat roof using some of the wooden detailing pieces there. They look fantastic, I think. And then we just finish off with some windows. I go and put the barred windows up, but then I realised that they wouldn't really have jail cells higher up, I don't think. And there we go, we're pretty much finished there. Last thing we do is place these dormer windows. Right, so we're going to finish off with some glamour shots, as you guys seem to love those. I've also done some night shots as well, because people moaned that I didn't do the promenade in the night last time, so enjoy those. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to give us a like. It really does help out the channel, and if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.